All right, guys, should we just get into this show?
Let's see how much of this we remember.
Yeah. So first, just like we always do, we're just going to kind of give our kind of overall spoiler-free impressions of Spider-Man, and then of course we'll go into a more in-depth review with spoilers and a plot breakdown. But anyway. So, Spider-Man No Way Home, the official synopsis reads thusly. For the first time in the cinematic history of Spider-Man, our friendly neighborhood hero's identity is revealed, bringing his superhero responsibilities into conflict with his normal life and putting those he cares about most at risk. When he enlists Doctor Strange's help to restore his secret, the spell tears a hole in the world, releasing the most powerful villains who've ever fought a Spider-Man in any universe. Now Peter will have to overcome his greatest challenge yet, which will not only forever alter his own future, but the future of the multiverse. The movie is directed by John Watts, who also directed Homecoming and Far From Home. Stars Tom Holland as Spider-Man, Zendaya as MJ, Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, and as we'll find out, a lot more people. I won't go over all of them right now. We'll get to them. All right, so now I don't think you did. You didn't see Far From Home, right? The second Spider-Man movie, the one that leads right into this.
I suspect that's true. Yes,
but you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this movie picks up right off the, and I'm actually glad that kind of your knowledge of Spider-Man isn't as much because we'll get a different viewpoint on this movie, maybe.
Well, I feel like maybe a little bit in Spider-Man, but definitely in Hawkeye there were side elements probably in other shows that I had no idea what the fuck.
Yeah, when you saw that lawyer character, you probably thought, like, why are people excited about this guy, right?
Well,
I don't know about
we'll
that.
get to that.
That's in the Spider-Man, right?
But
Yeah.
he would have
Yeah, I
known
know
that
about
character.
that.
But yeah, just what was your guys'? Well, yeah, but actually, before I was jumping to the story. What's your guys' overall impressions? Did you like the movie?
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it wouldn't be like my favorite Spider-Man movie of all time or anything, but I did like it quite a bit. It's definitely one of the stronger ones. I was a little surprised by how, continuity heavy it is and just how many references there are to all the other Spider-Man movies. But yeah, overall, I had a really fun time with the movie, and I have a hard time believing that anybody who's even remotely into Spider-Man wouldn't have a good time with this movie. Okay, so yeah, we all liked it. So now, spoilers ahead, guys, from this point on. So yeah, we start the movie out, and it basically picks up right where Spider-Man Far From Home left off, which is Mysterio revealed that Spider-Man is Peter Parker to the entire world. So help me out here, guys. It's been a few days since we watched this. So basically, he's basically just kind of like mobbed by all the people because he finds out basically in like Times Square or their version of it or whatever.
Right, and it's still, it's a little bit weird, but yeah, so he's getting all this attention and not really loving it. He's out of his element. But also, at the same time, people seem to be bugging him while he's Spider-Man. It's like, well, why didn't that happen before?
Oh, you mean just like, yeah, you could imagine if you went down like ground level, people would be all over him,
Yeah,
even if they didn't know
regardless.
who he was.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would still think he could just like throw it to the wind and still swing around and like have enough privacy on that level, I guess. I don't.
But the way they set it up was like he arrived there with MJ and people saw him with her. So like as soon as they found out, they kind of started mobbing her. Like,
Right.
are you like Spider-Man's girlfriend
So
or
then,
whatever?
yeah, they're all thrown into this. And
Yeah.
there's her and there's their other friend, which I don't remember his name.
Well, he'll come into play later.
Podcast.
Sure.
Ned.
But so Spider-Man and like Far From Home ended with like him swinging with her and like she's really like afraid to do it, like
Right, to escape.
and so he has to pick her up again. So of course, like they're flying through there, and she's freaking out again. It seems like at one point they like land on top of a bridge or something. He like takes a break. I don't really remember all that detail. And then he decides he's going to head for his apartment.
Right. Eventually,
On his way, like they pass by Flash Thompson, who on his phone is discovering that Peter is Spider-Man. And of course, that's a thing from the comics too, where like he's a huge Spider-Man fan, but of course, like is bullying Peter Parker, and then he finds out that he's Spider-Man. So yeah, he arrives at his apartment, and they have this whole thing where like Happy and Aunt May are there, and like they're like breaking up. Like they had a relationship in the second movie, but now they're breaking up. But then they hear like Peter go into his room, and they go in there, and like his shirt's off, and he's with Zendaya, so like they think they're like having sex in there or something. But then like they come out, and by the way, I don't know if you guys thought this, but when I found out that like Aunt May and Happy were breaking up, I'm like, I thought they were going to kill off Happy, because I was like, oh, so now we won't care as much. But they went the other way. Yeah. The other way with it. Basically, the TV gets turned on, and they find out the helicopters are like swarming their apartment. The whole media's on them.
Yeah. So basically, before he gets to tell them in his own way, the helicopter shows up or something.
Yeah. You guys are gonna have to help me out here. What transpired after this scene?
Well, I remember they're all going to that, but then when you come back to the three characters, like they're all trying to like apply and get into the same college or something.
Mm-hmm. We all try to get into MIT. Well, different schools.
At some point too, they had that whole. Maybe that was here where they had that whole, dickhead detective in the interrogation room with all of them, and he's like questioning them, and then this, I'm trying to think the order of events, because like eventually that leads to the Daredevil scene.
Yeah.
Right, there's some lawsuit, but I don't remember why.
Yeah, it was because I remember. So yeah, let's jump to that. So yeah, we do find out that Charlie Cox as Daredevil, Matt Murdock is back, which is a good thing.
Right, it's kind of interesting. They introduce him here briefly, and then they bring in Kingpin and Hawkeye a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get into it more when we talk about Hawkeye. But I think these are definitely alternate universe versions of the characters of the Netflix show, and aren't exactly the same. Like same actors, but different universes. You can't really tell that with Daredevil here, but in Hawkeye, there's some things that I think make it More likely, yeah. So yeah, they have a basically I think Matt tells Peter that basically you'll be fine legally, but then he's like to Happy, like you might need a good lawyer or something.
I don't remember what was the event. I don't even remember.
I would have to see it again to get exactly what his reasoning for that was and what the lawsuit was. But there is this great moment where like some people on the outside throw a brick through the window, and like Daredevil catches it. And Peter's like, how did you do that? And he's like, I'm a really good lawyer.
Yeah.
Nonsense.
And what's funny is like Aunt May immediately changes the subject. I would have been on that for a while. Like, no, wait, hold on.
Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Heard that brick coming from a mile. So yeah, eventually, not long after that, leads right into that scene you were talking about, where they kind of have this compilation where they all want to get into MIT, but they're also applying to like backup colleges and things like that. And like Peter keeps getting like the letters and whatever, and he's like, oh well, that was a backup college. That was a backup college. Anyway, he eventually gets the letter from MIT, and so then him, Zendaya, and Ned. they all meet up at this coffee shop.
Now, here's the thing: like they're all being rejected because of the publicity or whatever.
Well, that's what we find out. Yeah.
But yeah, so they've been rejected from like all these schools. However, when it comes to the MIT one, they're saving for last or whatever. They all seem very optimistic after all these rejections.
Well, that's true. The only reason like it should surprise them is if like maybe all the other letters said, we're not accepting you, but they didn't go into detail about why. Like, I don't know, it's just your academics or something. I don't know. But yeah, they all get there and like they open their letters and they're all shocked because basically the letters like say, oh, because of your association with Spider-Man, we can't accept you at this time or, whatever. So there might be some other stuff I'm missing, but basically, this eventually gives Peter. Oh, I remember now. There was Halloween decorations in that cafe that had like a wizard on them or something, and that reminded him of Doctor Strange. So now he goes to Doctor Strange, and like the Sanctum Sanctorum is all like covered in snow inside for some reason.
Yeah, they opened a portal to like, the snowstorm.
Yeah. And but he gets the idea, and this was in the trailers. Like he's going to have Doctor Strange cast a spell where everybody will forget that Spider-Man is Peter Parker, and Wong warns him not to, but he's like, "I'm going to do it anyway."
Yeah, this is like magic on the edge of the unknown or something.
But and this scene was in the trailer as well, and like people pointed this out on Twitter a long time ago, like. This is the crux of the whole movie, but like the whole movie could have been avoided if Peter wasn't fucking stupid. Because he really could have said nothing during the spell and then just afterwards like went up to MJ and everybody else and just told them again like, "Hey, I'm Spider-Man."
Also like maybe like Doctor Strange could have got a little more clarification before he jumped into.
That's true. Get a little more specific.
But he's like, I don't have time for this. Let's just go.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh shit.
Yeah, so anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, basically, like, Doctor Strange starts the spell, but then Peter's like, wait, I really want my girlfriend to know who I am. So he's like, fine, and, like, he adjusted to do that. But he's like, wait, I really want, Ned, too, my best friend. He's like, fine. And then he's like, wait, I want my aunt. And then, like, basically Doctor Strange, like, loses control of the spell, and it's going to basically start a rift, but he's able to contain it, kind of.
Right, he's at least temporarily contained it.
But unbeknownst to him at that time, what it did was allowed everybody in any alternate universe who happens to know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, it transferred them into this universe.
Right, they're getting sucked into this dimension. At least some of them. Some of them are still on the, like I guess there's like hundreds, thousands more like on the edge. But basically, a few main characters come through. You got, like, 5 villains?
Yeah.
And eventually it shows out. There's a couple other Peters as well.
Yeah.
I bet you like that.
3 Peters.
So basically, like, Doctor Strange now is really mad at Peter and tells him to go away or whatever. And, he calls Flash Thompson because he basically wants to plead to MIT to be like, okay, you can fuck me over, but don't fuck my friends over. They didn't do anything. And Flash happens to know this because he was accepted to MIT. And they found that at the scene in the coffee shop earlier. So like he's like, okay, there's this lady, but she's headed for the airport because conveniently he just happens to know that. So anyway, Spider-Man starts trying to track this woman down, and he's got like the Iron Man Spider-Man suit, so he's got like all the fancy like tracking software in his goggles and everything like that.
I'll have more to say about this in regards to Hawkeye, but let's keep going.
Okay, just try to remember it because it'll be a while before we get there. So he tracks down the woman, and like on the highway, and he like knocks on her window and starts to talk to her, but then the highway starts like to shake and starts get torn up. And that's when Dr. Octopus's arm like comes up and we see,
Right, that's the first appearance of Doc Ock.
yeah, so we got Alfred Molina, who I really like him.
Yeah.
He's a good actor, and I thought he was still good in this. So him and Peter start fighting, and of course, like the woman in his car, like starts to go over the thing, and Spider-Man just barely saves her by using his web and hooking it to the bridge. And him and Doc Ock start to fight like on the underside of the bridge. Doc Ock like gets the best of him, pins him against the wall, and takes his mask off, and then he's like, "Oh wait, you're not Peter," because his Peter is Tobey Maguire.
Right.
It also like ended up being kind of pointless, but he's like, "Oh, you got like nanotech on your suit," and he rips like a piece of
Right, he steals some
the chest,
of it.
and it just like basically changes all of his tentacles into like Iron Man colors, basically.
Right, so basically it's been integrated with his claws somehow.
Yeah. Which maybe would be cool if it played a bigger part, but it really doesn't. But then Peter somehow uses his tech. Oh,
Right.
Maybe this is.
he ends up getting control of the
So I guess that was the purpose. Basically, it was infected his claws so that Peter could then control them.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that makes sense then. So yeah, Peter uses that nanotech to control Doc's arms, and basically gets him back up to the street level, and like he had some conversation with the MIT woman.
Yeah, she sees that he saves her because she was like about to fall off the bridge in the car, and he like pulls her up, and she sees that he's done all this to like help her and help people, and she says to him that she's going to accept his friends into MIT. I think she also said he would get in too.
I think she maybe said that she was going to put in like a good word for him, but maybe
Yeah.
couldn't guarantee.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines.
Right.
So then this part I thought was weird. So now like he's got Doc Ock under wraps, but then a goblin bomb hits like well maybe he like hears the goblin or sees him coming on the glider. He throws a bomb down and it explodes, but then like Peter's like instantly like transported, and at first we don't know where. And it actually, at first I was like, oh, are they bringing Mysterio back or something? Because it was kind of reminiscent. You didn't see Far From
I
Home,
didn't see it.
but like he basically had this whole thing where like he made Peter see like all these different like visions. He has that kind of technology. So for a brief second I thought, oh, are they bringing him back? Also, they supposedly killed Mysterio at the end of that movie, but they definitely they could bring him back.
Yeah.
But no, he's actually in Doctor Strange's like kind of basement cellar, where Doctor Strange basically has like several like prison cells, and he's transported Dr. Octopus into one of them. And this is where he basically breaks down to Peter like, hey, when we did the spell, all these people that know Peter Parker, Spider-Man, came to this universe, and you got to track him down. You got to get him back in these prisons.
Did he have Osborn at that point too?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I couldn't remember.
No, that comes later.
Why did I think he got two at the bridge? I don't remember.
Now, question for you guys. This was one thing is a little confused on, because like he's got in his box, like he contained the spell down into like this kind of orange crystal type thing,
Right.
which is in a box, and like if he breaks that, it sends them all back to their universe.
Right. There's some like switch or something, like he can send them back, but he has to capture them all first
That's the thing. Why did he have to capture them?
because plot.
I'm sure they put that in there, and I'm just not remembering it.
Which obviously isn't true because at the end something different happens.
Yeah, so I'm kind of wondering why.
But also, like, he wouldn't have captured the Spider-Mans because he didn't even know about them. He wasn't planning to capture them.
Yeah, I think there probably are definitely some plot holes in this movie when you think about it too much. Maybe.
Anyway,
yeah.
Spider-Man's tasked with gathering up these villains
Yeah,
so they can be sent back.
so Doctor Strange then changes up his gauntlet so that it'll shoot these webs that basically instantly transport the villains to these prisons.
Right, yeah, he gets that special technology.
So I'm thinking there's probably a scene or two that I'm leaving out, but eventually Peter brings MJ and Ned to Doctor Strange as well. Because he's like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to need some help from my friends.
Right, and basically their task is to go on the internet and find where these other villains are striking.
Well, yeah, apparently, like, they give off some sort of energy signature that they can track or something along those lines. And Doctor Strange is basically, you know, that line from the trailer where he's like, okay, you guys Scooby-Doo this shit or whatever. Like, he's not even, like, really involved. He's just like, okay, you guys take care of this.
That's another good question. What the fuck is he doing?
Yeah, he could have been more involved. It seems like this is a pretty perilous thing, you know?
I mean, I don't want to like make up the story, but maybe he was like working on a spell, like trying to how to fix it or something.
Yeah, maybe he still had some stuff to do.
Yeah.
I think he was just like smoking reefer.
He's like, you kids take care of this. I'm getting ice cream.
And Ned offhand like makes this remark that like, oh, magic's real. Like my grandmother or whatever that I live with says we got magic that runs in our family conveniently.
Right. And he's like, sometimes my fingers feel tingly.
Doctor Strange should have been like, yeah, I think that's diabetes, kid.
You're gonna lose those fingers.
And he's like, you can work in the Undercroft. And he's like, oh, the Undercroft. And it ends up just being that like shitty basement area with the prison. Zendaya finds like some Just for Men, like that Doctor Strange uses in his beard. Oh, okay. One thing I didn't get. So basically, this is going to lead to like they're like, oh, there's a power fluctuation out by these power lines, and he's going to go there. He's wearing his suit is like a different. Now, is that just his suit like inside out because he was like it was dirty or something? Because
I don't know.
When he goes to the woods?
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention.
I thought he just like used duct tape to like strap that phone onto his chest.
He did that, but didn't his suit look like a different color?
I don't know.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it just looked different because it was in the dark or something. And I remember there was a scene though. Wasn't he like trying to like clean it or something too?
There were a couple scenes where he was like scrubbing it because it was dirty, I guess, in the sink.
Yeah,
because he's poor. Also, it makes no fucking sense, really. But, yeah, just random shit. But there was, like, a piece missing because of Doc Ock.
Yeah.
But, yeah, at some point he had, like, the phone strapped there, so I guess they could watch where he was swinging at him.
Yeah. So he swings out in the woods on these, like, big power lines. And, like, he's like, okay, this is the spot. And, like, we kind of see, like, fluctuations in the dirt. So we're like, in your mind, you're like, oh, Sandman. But then Electro appears, Jamie Foxx. And he looks a lot different, a lot better than he did in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, you know, I think at first he kind of has like, just like an energy form, like he's not a full person. But he's like zapping power from the power lines that like is going to turn into a person. Because like, doesn't Spider-Man, he like... He shoots his web, but it basically just goes through him because he's like pure energy, and it hits a tree, which transports the tree into the prison cell.
Yeah,
something like that.
He shot like
he did shoot a tree.
Doctor Strange gave him some sort of device that helped him like capture people.
Yeah,
that's what he shot.
But then like Jamie Foxx does become solid, and he starts fighting with Peter. And, like, I think he's about to get the best of him, but then, like, a big old block of sand comes up and we find out, oh, Sandman is there, too. And if you remember, he became basically a good guy by the end of the original Spider-Man 3, so... he helps Peter basically detain Electro. And then they have a short conversation. I don't remember what it was, but then Sandman's like, I don't trust you. Maybe because he's not his Peter Parker or whatever.
Right.
And so
yeah.
Peter just zaps him as well.
Right. Yeah, got to defuse that situation. But yeah, they both get zapped to the dungeon.
Yeah. Now, did you guys see the Amazing Spider-Man movies? Those were the Andrew Garfield movies.
I did.
No, never saw him.
So this movie is like the only time I'm kind of glad I watched those because they're not good movies. But like there are like, you know, obviously references to those movies in this. That's what I got to say kind of surprised me about this movie because like there were heavy rumors that like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were in this movie. So that, you know, didn't surprise me that they were in here. But like, I do wonder, like, people that maybe are younger and never watched those older movies, like, if what they think of all these villains and cameos in these movies. They're just like, I don't get this, you know?
Well, I mean, the Garfield one came out like a few years ago, right? Like, not that long ago.
I don't remember, like, maybe the early teens? 20 teens?
Okay, yeah, so like around 2013, 14, around there.
Could have been. I don't remember the
Okay,
exact
so
year.
7 years. I think, I mean, even a few years later, the movie comes on TV and stuff, so I think kids probably would have caught up with that.
Okay, it could be. So yeah, Peter makes his way back to the cellar, I guess, and there's a conversation. Mostly, I think, but between all of them, really. Oh, when did the lizard get there?
He had already been caught by Doctor Strange. Like, by the time Peter had showed up with Doc Ock, I think.
Right. Yeah. So he was already captured. That's right. That's why I was thinking there was two people. Yes. Yeah. So he was already.
Okay, so there's Lizard, Dr. Octopus,
Sandman,
and Electro. And then I think Peter and Dr. Octopus basically have a conversation where he's like, there was like a green elf type creature on the highway. And then Dr. Octopus is like, that's Norman Osborn. He might have called him Green Goblin there too. I don't remember. But he's like, but it can't be because he's dead.
Right. Well, yeah. Octavius was the one that was really set on him being dead. But it's like, it's multiple universes, so he's alive somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't... This is a conversation between them all that I don't remember, like, all the details of. Because at some point... Maybe... You know what? Did he get... Green Goblin before or after he got Electro and Sandman?
I don't remember.
I
I
think
don't
after.
remember much of the scene where he got him.
So at some point we're just...
Well, he showed up to Aunt May's homeless shelter.
That's right. I don't remember if it was before.
Yeah, so
after.
at some point...
I think it was after.
At some point, they basically cut to this alleyway, and we can tell that, like, Norman Osborn is still, like, you know, schizophrenic. Like, the goblin is inside his head, and he's trying to fight it. And, like, he has an argument with the goblin. He basically throws his mask and breaks it. And then, he ends up in Aunt May's shelter. And so I think she contacts Peter, and Peter goes and meets him. And basically, he just volunteers to go back with Peter.
Right. He's pretty easygoing, no real conflict.
Right. So at some point, all of them then are in the basement with all of them.
Right. They're all there.
And basically, from what I remember of the other movies, like, Dr. Octopus at the end of Spider-Man 2 was about to die. And basically, this must have pulled him in, like, right as that was happening.
Right. It seemed like a lot of them, like, were pulled out of the universe pretty much at the cusp of being killed.
Yeah. Green Goblin did die in Spider-Man. I believe Electro died in Amazing Spider-Man 2. The Lizard, I don't remember that movie that well. I don't think he died, and Sandman didn't die either. So not all of them died, but basically, what Peter finds out from Doctor Strange is that like when he, breaks the crystal and sends them back, like the ones that died are gonna die.
Right, and so part of this conversation happens as well with Aunt May, right, and Norman. Because like she's the one who's like is like against him just being sent back to die.
I think so.
Which I don't remember exactly how that came to pass.
Yeah, I don't remember how it goes, but basically she encourages Peter to help them as much as he can.
Right. She's like, yeah, whatever her motto was, you can't like just send them back to die.
Right. Mm-hmm. So then basically, Doctor Strange is about to send them all back, but Peter's like, no, you can't do it. And he basically steals that box that Doctor Strange has.
Right, and then as he's running, Strange is like throwing all these portals or whatever, and eventually he passes in his portal is like a mirror dimension.
Well, before that though, he hits Peter and like knocks him out of his own body, like his astral projection.
Yeah.
And like while he's out there, like he's trying to get the box, but Peter's body is like still moving it from him, and he's like, "How are you doing this?" And from what I hear, like there's conjecture, but I think it's his spider sense is like still going, even though, like subconsciously, even though he's out of his body. That's as good a theory as any, at least.
It works.
But anyway, then he gets back into his body, and then like the chase is on, and like you said, Doctor Strange, enters the mirror dimension so that it doesn't fuck up the real world.
Right.
And
so then they're running around, like Inception style.
And I like this scene. I like all the crazy visuals and stuff here. Like they fall through the city and they end up on this train and it goes through the city and then it ends up kind of going in like this kind of Grand Canyon type place. I did think the way it ended though, Peter Parker is like selectively a genius, I feel like. Where like he doesn't always seem like a genius, but then when they need him to be, he is. And then he's like, oh, this is like a spiral and all I need to do is go here, here, here. And he's like, oh, I used the big math equation to...
Well, you're right. He's like, oh, this is just geometry. I'm really good at geometry.
Yeah. So
I thought I was good at geometry. But then I saw this.
But yeah, basically he Shanghai's...
He should probably just be a professional pool player.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, he finally catches him in the web and he takes the box and also like his ring.
The sling ring.
It's called the sling ring, okay. Mm-hmm. But basically he takes this, and so now Doctor Strange is stuck here, and he can't like really conjure anything.
Yeah.
And he's just like sitting there stewing and pissed off.
Yeah.
And
that's where he'll spend the majority of the movie.
Yeah. And then, he doesn't show up again until much later.
He says later that he was there for 12 hours.
Over the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And pissed off.
So now, like Peter comes back, and this seems like kind of a stupid idea, but basically he ends up taking all the villains back to Happy's apartment. And we glossed over this before. After all, the media was all after him, they all moved into Happy's apartment because it's all like secure.
Right. Yeah, more secure. But yeah, you're right. Just taking them all there is pretty stupid. Mm. But somehow he sells them all on like, okay, I'm going to fix all you guys, and then we'll send you back.
But even like if he made them, like, quote unquote, fix them, aren't they going back in the same exact time?
Yeah, like right before they die.
Well, I mean, maybe say, oh, you're not as bad as I thought. You can live. I don't know. I have no idea what they...
I mean, like I think
situation
Dr. Octopus, like, basically drowns in the ocean. So, like, even if he becomes a good guy, which he does... Isn't he just going to go back and be like, blah, 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 and fucking die?
We send him back a hero.
But he'll die as a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll make it to heaven now.
But yeah, at this point, basically, well, the reptile seems rational. Like, he can talk to him, and he's not super crazy. Although he has some weird beliefs or whatever. Norman seems genuinely, like, good, even though like he's got his crazy part, and the other three are still kind of, would you say, resistant?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, they all go back to his apartment. He's got like this fancy Tony Stark fabricator machine where he can basically make anything. And again, Peter Parker's selectively a genius. Like first he fixes Doc Ock.
Right, they figure out he just has a burnt up chip.
Yeah, the inhibitor chip, of course, from Iron Man 2. So when that burnt out, like the arms became in control of him.
Right, the AI penetrated his brain.
Yeah, so basically he fixes that chip and immediately just turns Dr. Octopus back into a good guy.
Right, yeah, basically he's like, the voices are gone.
And he gives Peter his Iron Man stuff back,
Oh, right, yeah. He doesn't need his nanoparticles anymore.
Yeah. I mean, Sandman he didn't really need to fix because Sandman was basically already a good guy. Electro, he made this thing to put on his chest that basically...
we skipped a part, didn't we?
Probably.
Well, were all the Spider-Mans there, or that comes later?
That comes a little bit later.
Right, they do a little bit, and then they come back to it.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Oh, and also, we did skip the part where Peter basically, he gave the box to Ned and MJ and told them to basically go somewhere safe.
Right.
I think he gave Ned the sling ring at that point, or
Yes.
Right, yeah, and so while they're doing these experiments in the apartment, like he's playing around with this ring. He figures out at some point he can open a portal, but that comes a little bit later.
So yeah, Peter fixes Doc Ock. He puts the thing on Electro, which is starting to count down. And basically, of all of them right now, Electro seems like kind of the one that's the biggest villain. Mm-hmm. Like you can tell
he seems like a genuine psychopath. Like
yeah,
and it's kind of jumping ahead, but like at the end, I'm like, this dude's a fucking psycho. You didn't cure him.
Yeah, he's still crazy.
He's powerless, but he's still a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And also, Peter made a serum that's supposedly going to fix Green Goblin's brain, I guess.
Right, yeah, that's a theory.
Now, Peter, basically, as the thing is on Electro's chest, and Peter's spider sense just starts going crazy. And also, another thing we skipped is J. Jonah Jameson has a guy that's been tailing Peter, and he follows him to Happy's apartment and lets Jonah know that they're there. So now he's down on the street, kind of taping the building, like looking for a news story.
Right.
And also the Lizard is with them, but they left him locked in a van downstairs.
Right, yeah, he's locked in a van.
So yeah, his spider sense is going crazy. He doesn't know why. And then
he's surrounded by all the bad guys, so it's like I think he's just confused.
Yeah. But then we find out that Norman, like the Green Goblin, is back in control.
Right.
And I forget exactly what he does here to kick the action off. Does he do a bomb or something?
I don't remember because Electro's like, well, the thing is making him discharge, right? He's taking out his energy.
Right.
At some point, that gets switched.
I think he like takes it off or something.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So he's charging or something.
Basically, yeah. I don't remember everything that happened here, but like
it just turns into chaos.
Yeah, chaos. Goblin breaks out. Sandman breaks apart and starts swirling dust everywhere. Electro breaks loose, and May she goes because she sees that like Goblin's a problem. She goes and grabs that serum that they made, and she starts heading downstairs, and because I think Peter, does he go outside and start fighting him?
Eventually, they go outside. I think like a hole gets blown in the wall and
something like that.
Go out or
I'm sure we're missing some beats
but also,
here,
like Sandman, he's not feeling bad, but like he just wants to push the button on the box and like go home.
Yeah, because he wants to see his daughter,
right?
So he wants to go home.
And he wants to go home now.
Yeah.
All the time.
And also the lizard breaks out of that van
At some point,
downstairs,
yeah.
and like J. Jonah Jameson is like, what was that, or what, whatever. So yeah, eventually, now I think some of the villains just basically end up fucking off, like getting out of there, and it comes down to Peter and the Goblin.
Mainly, yeah.
But anyway, it ends up being Peter, the Goblin, and May all together. And Goblin sends his glider into May, and like she goes down, and like I think he tells Peter like, God, I don't know. He says something like, you'll thank me or something. And then he like throws a bomb and leaves, I think. Something along those lines. And at first, like, May, like, gets up. Like, when it hit her, I'm like, oh, they are going to kill her. But then it was weird because, like, she did get up. And at first, she seemed fine. And they're kind of having a conversation. But then, like, Peter realizes, oh, she's not okay. And, like, she's bleeding from her stomach or whatever,
Yeah.
And like she ends up going down, and they basically give her the Uncle Ben moment. She tells him with great responsibility.
Yeah, I like the
with
death
great power
scene.
becomes great responsibility.
Death scene was good because, like, normally it's like, oh, I'm dying, last few words. But this was more like she did get in the last few words, but she didn't know she was dying. She thought she was gonna be okay. So the whole time, like, she's just like, I'll get right up, but give me a minute, like.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a pretty cool way to
We
do
talked briefly about, like, this Spider-Man, like he didn't even have an Uncle Ben or something.
If they ever mentioned it in, like, Homecoming, it must have been brief. I don't remember them.
Well, I mean, when the two other Spider-Men said that their Uncle Ben said, that line, he didn't say anything about, like, having an Uncle Ben.
Yeah, I don't know if they ever have mentioned Uncle Ben in this series of movies. Like, maybe he doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and I think it was at that moment, like we mentioned when we reviewed Ghostbusters, that your oldest son got scared and had to leave.
Right.
And I think he couldn't handle this death scene, so he had to leave again.
Yeah, he was crying when Aunt May died. And then, like, Roma took him out. Yeah, so the movies are just going to be, like, traumatizing for him all the time.
I mean, I would think within a couple years he'll be old enough that he won't get that way. I don't know.
It was questionable to take them, definitely.
Jai was okay with it, though, right?
Yeah.
He was okay, but I think he was still kind of like, eh. He told me it was good, it was bad.
Yeah, he said he loved it and hated it.
So now I think after this whole death scene, we go back to MJ and Ned, and they're at his aunt or grandma's house or whoever she is. And this is, like you said, where he starts like playing around with the sling ring, and he notices that he can make these portals. And at one point, they're like, "Oh, make a portal to Peter."
Yeah, let me see Peter.
Now, this I have a problem with as well. And this is why I don't really like magic when I read in, like, my superhero comics and stuff, because it really does end up just becoming like a Deus Machina power. Like, it does whatever you need it to do when you need it to do it. Because, like, and I wouldn't even notice this, but I happened to rewatch Doctor Strange like a couple weeks ago. And when he first gets the sling ring, he's trying to make portals, but he's struggling. And, like, Tilda Swinton's character is basically like, you really got to imagine in detail, like, where you're going, to kind of open it up or whatever. And so, like, number one, like, he doesn't know exactly where Peter is. But even, like, if going by that logic, he's like, okay, I'm going to concentrate on Peter Parker. I can picture him. Wouldn't he be picturing his Peter Parker? I mean, to just be like, okay, find me Peter Parker, and then it conveniently opens up a portal, but it's, Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker.
What if he was picturing him in the costume? because that's when he sees Garfield in the costume. But then that wouldn't make sense for the Tobey Maguire.
Another thing,
And and they have slightly different costumes.
I didn't quite appreciate this at the time. I was like, because I thought maybe it was opening on another universe, because I didn't realize the Spider-Mans were already in his universe. Or were they?
Yeah, they had somehow crossed over.
Right.
Well, they must have crossed over when Strange did the
Everyone else
spell.
did, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he does this a couple times, like, and he gets the wrong Spider-Man 2 times.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how.
So that's the whole
Spider-Man's joined the crew.
magic and consistency there. But I mean, it was an entertaining scene, and this is where the theater was clapping and stuff when those two came in. So, so then I don't remember everything they said here. It was like an entertaining scene, but basically it ends with them being like, well, do you know where Peter would go when he's like sad or whatever? And because one of them's like, oh, I would go to the Empire State Building, and the other one's like, oh, I would go to this tower or whatever.
Chrysler Building.
Yeah. And MJ's like, oh, I know where he would go, and it was at the top of their high school. So they go there, and like they have a big group hug, and I don't know. At that point, would they have known that May was dead? I don't know.
Oh,
Well, they knew he was sad. So
They knew he was sad, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, they have a big hug. And then Andrew Garfield and Toby come down. And then this is where they kind of have, the conversation of getting to know each other. And, they find out, Tom Holland's Peter Parker's like, really pissed and wants revenge. But then, Toby's telling him like, the guy that killed my Uncle Ben, like he died and it didn't make me feel any better.
Right. Like they walked the same road as him. And so they're trying to prevent him from making the same mistakes.
And like Andrew Garfield talks about how he couldn't save Gwen Stacy, and then how after that, like he was like, I don't know, laying in his punches harder than he should.
Right,
or
yeah.
some bullshit like that.
Rage-filled fighting or something.
Yeah.
well, in the comics, like Spider-Man's like stronger than he actually shows himself to be. Like in one episode when Dr. Octopus took over his body and became Superior Spider-Man, he punched the jaw off of one of his enemies.
Oh yeah, he's like super strength. Yeah.
So like he pulls his punches, but in this case, they're saying he stopped doing that and started going nuts.
I don't think he was just like murdering guys, but yeah, like,
Yeah,
but like beating them up.
yeah, blowing up heads.
That'd be fine. He's like, in my universe, I'm like a wanted like maniac. But they basically have the conversation of like, I think they basically come to the conclusion of like, okay, yeah, let's try to help all these guys, cure them all.
Right, yeah. He gets them back on board for that conversation.
So then they go to their high school science lab, which is basically stocked with all the stuff they would need to do all this bullshit.
But like also like each of the Spider-Mans kind of already knows how to fix like one or two people.
Yeah, so like, yeah, Tobey Maguire's like, I've been thinking a long time, and I think I know how to make a formula that'll fix Goblin's brain.
Right, because they'd actually already used the other formula on him and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I forgot about that part, because, yeah, May got him with the formula, and it didn't do shit, right?
Yeah.
That's right. They already fixed Doc Ock. Oh, yeah, I think Garfield, he had a plan to turn the lizard back into a man, and they had already made the thing that would fix Electro before. It just wasn't on him long enough.
Right, he got pulled off, or I don't know. But he got some alternative that was going to be much like stronger.
He got the arc reactor. From the synthesizer.
From Stark.
Oh, I missed that bit, I think.
Yeah, that's how he got like supercharged at the end or whatever. And then also like some serum for the Sandman as well.
That's right. I remember there was some like entertaining conversations in that bit. Like I remember like
Yeah, there were some Easter eggs and stuff. They did
Yeah.
like the 3 Spider-Man pointing at each other meme, like a few things.
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
that's true. Yeah.
And like Ned asked Toby about like, did you have a best friend or something? He's like, yeah, but he turned into a supervillain and tried to kill me. And then he went to Tom Holland and was like, I promise I won't become a supervillain and
That's
try
right,
to
because
kill
he was
you.
like, yeah, he became a supervillain and then I killed him.
yeah, yeah. So there was definitely some like good back and forth during that scene. I can't recall like every conversation, but there was
Like Tobey Maguire shoots the thing his body actually produces, the webs.
Oh, yeah,
The other
right.
one's
Oh,
deep
right.
cartridges.
Yeah.
They're like, it just comes out of you. It's like, does it only come out of your hands?
And they address like the whole Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. They call him amazing, and people kind of give him a hard time because they say that Andrew Garfield's not really. He's like the worst Spider-Man. So like they were trying to say like, oh, and plus his movies are called The Amazing Spider-Man, so they're like, oh, you're amazing, you're amazing. So
Yeah, there's a number of Easter eggs. I
Yeah.
think, so.
yeah. I'm sure there is even some I missed, and I've seen all those movies, but like the Andrew Garfield ones, I only watched once because, like I said, they're not good.
He was all right in this.
yeah, he was good in this.
Maybe he
Well,
had a
in
little
those
bit of
movies, those
redemption.
movies being bad isn't his fault. He's actually a good Peter Parker. It's just those movies are written terribly and
The
not
writing's
directed
awful,
well.
yeah.
Yeah. Everything else was a problem. It wasn't him.
Sam Raimi directed the Tobey Maguire ones. Right?
Yes, and then I want to say the guy's name is Mark Webb directed the other two, and yeah, they're just bad.
Okay.
So basically, yeah, goes to the Statue of Liberty to basically draw all the villains towards him, and like the plan is for the MJ and Ned to basically, I think, once they get them all cured, they're gonna like break the thing and send them back, right?
Right. So yeah, they're sitting on it prepared. But also, like, if anything went horribly wrong, I think they were supposed to do it, right?
Yeah,
Something,
I think
yeah.
so. So yeah, Peter is basically goes online on his phone and like on the Statue of Liberty, and like J. Jonah Jameson's like commentating over top, saying basically, he's like the Alex Jones of this universe, and he's just like shitting on him every chance he gets. But so they have a moment where they all three talk before all the villains get there, and again it had some like entertaining back and forth, and they reference Venom because like Toby's like, oh, I once fought this like goo monster from outer space, and then Tom talks about how I also fought this alien trying to take over the world. He was like purple, Thanos, and then like Andrew Garfield's like, oh, I fought this guy in a big like rhino mech suit or whatever. He's like, I am lame. I want to fight an alien. So that was a good bit. Yeah. And he like cracks like Tobey Maguire's back, or
Oh yeah.
Or yeah, because he's like kind of half sidelined, going like, "Oh, my back."
Yeah. I mean, this whole like action scene, like I'm not gonna remember all the beats of it. I don't remember what villains show up first, or maybe they all show up and start. I know Electro, Sandman, and I think Lizard are basically all there.
Yeah. Sandman kind of confuses me because like all the other ones, I get that they don't want to go back, and that's why they're fighting, But Sandman's also fighting with them, but he wants to go back really badly.
Yeah, basically, he just doesn't want to hesitate.
So maybe he's just like thinking he can find the box and break the thing himself.
I think maybe there is some attempt at that.
But yeah, it's a little confusing to put all together.
Electro's like, I got this great new source of power. I don't want to leave. I just want to like, rule this world or something.
Yeah. So they all start fighting, but basically the villains start to get the better of them. And then they all kind of go to the middle, and, conveniently, like the villains are like, okay, we'll give these guys a timeout to talk for a very
They
long
get a little
time.
huddle.
Yeah.
Little halftime huddle.
And by the way, like they find every excuse these guys to keep taking off their masks. It's like mask on, mask off, got to emote, mask on, mask off, just constantly. There was a good bit in there where like Tom Holland was like, "Oh guys, like it's about teamwork. I even fought alongside the Avengers." And Toby was like, "Oh, that's great. What is that?" Because like they're not on his world, so that was entertaining too, I thought. But basically, they're like, instead of like fighting all these guys scattershot, we got to really concentrate on one at a time.
Right, yeah.
And so that's what they do.
And then they split up.
They do kind of, because like yeah, Toby ends up going to get getting Sandman cured. And like, so they're kind of paired off. They do kind of split up again. It's kind of, I don't know if that
There's
really
like
tracks.
a little teamwork, like passing the serum back and
There
forth.
probably is.
Yeah.
And then at some point, I'm sure I'm doing this out of order, but at some point, Dr. Octopus does show up, and like he briefly like grabs this one of the Spider-Man, probably Toby. And so then Electro like thinks he's on his side, but then he grabs the thing and puts it on Electro.
Right,
and,
yeah, he
'cause he's a good
double-crosses
guy.
him,
Yeah,
yeah.
double crosses him and gets him. Another good beat was like Andrew Garfield goes up to him and takes his mask off, and he's like, "Ah, damn. You know, I thought you would be black." He's like, "You help poor people. You were from Queens or whatever." And he's like, "Oh, well, I bet there's a black Spider-Man somewhere." You know, so that was a good like call out, I thought. And then
This is unrelated. I saw a meme of like a black kid, kind of like, was it Miles?
Miles Morales.
probably
But yeah, so the black kid with like the afro, and he pulled it on, and just like there's this big goofy head at the top, and just like, this shit don't make no sense.
that is true. You don't think about that, but yeah, you can't have ridiculous hair and put on a mask like that. Now, I don't remember why, but Ned made a portal. I don't know if he just wanted to watch the action or whatever, but remember it leads to the lizard end up chasing them around.
Yeah, well,
right. Well, I think they opened it so they could
Get the
get out
box.
at the statue, right? But they were also there watching, so they were like present but slightly distant.
But anyway, yeah, the lizard ends up chasing them. Tom Holland goes in to help them, but then they end up, to save themselves, jump through the portal and end up on the Statue of Liberty
Right.
in the midst of everything.
In the fighting, yeah.
At some point, they open up another portal, and that's when Doctor Strange finally gets out of his prison
Right.
of the
yeah.
mirror
He
dimension.
comes out and he's all pissed off.
But he does like instantly realize, like, wait, you can open a portal. Like Ned had the magical
Right.
power. I think I don't remember, but also Andrew Garfield ends up curing Lizard, and he turns back into
a human,
a
yeah.
human. So then I don't remember exactly where Goblin shows up.
Like, he's the last one, so yeah, basically everyone's getting cured, and then you like Tom Holland kind of got paired off with him, so they're fighting. At some point, the Statue of Liberty dropped her Captain America shield.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're fighting, and finally, like Spider-Man gets the best of him, and like he's prepared, he's ready to kill him. Like he's still raw about it.
Oh, and it just like in that one like Fast and Furious movie we watched, it goes pretty quick from nighttime to like morning.
Right. You need those transitions.
Yeah,
But yeah, he has what, maybe like
the glider.
the glider, and he's gonna like kill him with it.
Yeah.
And then Toby gets in the way, and like I don't know, they have some words, but so Toby Maguire basically changes his mind, and then like he gets stabbed in the back by the goblin.
Yeah. And they tease that maybe he's gonna die, but he doesn't end up.
Yeah, you kind of think maybe he will, but he doesn't. And then one of them throws him the serum or whatever, and then instead of killing him, he gives him the serum.
And while all that's going on, basically Doctor Strange starts losing control of the spell. And like it's going to start basically all these like portals open up, and it's going to start like basically letting everybody through.
Yeah, everybody who ever knew Peter Parker in every universe.
And I think maybe even people that didn't. I wasn't sure.
I don't know, but yeah, some cataclysmic event. The skies are opening. It's all purple,
and you can all purple, and you can kind of see like figures of people.
Right, and so he's like up on top of the statue, and he's just trying to hold shit together.
Yeah, and so then Peter has the idea of like, what if we redo the spell, but now everybody forgets Peter Parker exists altogether.
Right, everybody. A simpler version of the spell. Because at this point, the spell's out of control. It's going to break. Like, there's nothing he can do to, like, hold the shit together anymore. He's like, well, what if you just recast and just everyone forgets me? And he's like, yeah, that would work. So.
But would it really?
Well, like, apparently part of the crux of all these people coming through is that they know him. So if they don't know him, they won't come through.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, he does have a little bit of time to say goodbye to Ned and MJ. And he basically tells them, look, I'm gonna find you. I'm going to make you remember me.
Right. And then he makes all these promises. And yeah. And then they cast the spell.
Yeah, so then they cast the spell. I just feel like this opens up so many questions. Like I heard somebody like on a podcast I was listening to basically say like, what if he didn't swing often? What if he just stayed there and then like the spell happens and then like MJ, he'd be right by MJ and Ned and they'd be like, you know, who are you? And they would be more open to buying his story because they'd be like, yeah, why are we here with you? You know?
Yeah.
So it seems like maybe there was a better way for, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just got to try to hold shit together and be like, that's good enough.
I mean, there's a plot hole with Electro. Like, did he ever even know who Spider-Man was? Because I don't think he ever knew.
Well,
apparently in some universe he knew.
It's been forever since I watched those Amazing Spider-Man movies, but I think they quickly referenced somewhere in this movie that, yeah, he did find out that Andrew Garfield in his universe was...
So, like, later on, maybe he found out, like...
Well, I think, basically, if in their own movies they found out that their version of Peter Parker was Spider-Man, it let them through when the spell was messed up.
Okay.
So, yeah, basically, you know, in the Tobey Maguire movies, Goblin knew he was Peter Parker. Dr. Octopus knew he was Peter Parker, so they were able to come through. And then the Lizard knew he was Peter Parker, and I guess Electro must have as well. So,
but yeah, they were all cured, and basically, like I was saying earlier, like Electro, like his thing was taken off, but like he was still a piece of shit. Like he was not cured.
Yeah, I mean, you could make the argument that it was like the powers that corrupted him, like his
like
mind.
He was corrupt
maybe
because of the power.
Like Doc Ock, sort of.
Man.
yeah, so maybe we just didn't like see that resolution in this. Like maybe once the power was out of him, he was back to being a good guy. Because I believe, like in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, like at the beginning of that movie, he is basically a good guy.
No.
And then once he gets the powers, he does kind of turn into a shithead. Again, and it was so stupid. And they mentioned in this movie, like, he got his powers because he, like, fell into this, like...
vat of eels.
Of electric eels, yeah. It was really dumb. You
know, some dumbass tried something after that.
Probably.
They're joking about, like, how a lot of people got their powers by falling into something.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and so many, like... I was exposed to radiation, and instead of getting cancer, I got this awesome power.
Right. The Sandman fell into like a...
Oh, yeah,
like
they do joke about that. Yeah, he fell into like this...
A particle accelerator.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and Electro fell into the eels. Yeah, I forgot they made that joke. They did, yeah. But anyway, yeah, the spell works. And so then we cut to, a little bit later, Peter Parker, he's going back into MJ's coffee shop. He's been practicing. He's got his all written out, how he's going to explain to her and Ned, everything. But then I think he basically kind of sees that they're happy.
Yeah.
They got into MIT.
They got into MIT and they're happy, and he basically kind of decides, hey, maybe I don't want to.
He's about to tell her, but he sees the Band-Aid on her forehead.
That's right.
And he thinks, I don't want to cause any more harm.
Yeah, classic superhero stuff. Yeah. So he's like, he decides to just let him be. So then, no, the thing about the spell is like, okay, people still know that Spider-Man is a thing. They just don't know that.
Yeah, that he's Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know Peter Parker.
Right.
But does that mean that, like, magically, like, his social security card and all of his pictures of him and things disappear?
I doubt it. I'd be like, oh, here's my driver's license. Oh, you're Peter Parker.
But we see at the end that he has like a book about how to get his GED, which to me
That was weird, yeah.
says that like the records of him, having a high school diploma are
Yeah,
gone.
Maybe he has to redo everything.
So it seems like maybe they're going that route. But yeah, now he's back to basically being a more traditional Spider-Man. He sews his own costume. And it ends with him like kind of swinging through the snow in his new digs.
Free from encumbrance or friendship or relatives.
Free of any family or loved ones.
And then we get the mid-credit sequence, which is Tom Hardy. And like I've said on the show, I still haven't watched those Venom movies because they just look bad. I'm sure eventually I will. But even this... And I love Tom Hardy, but this didn't make me want to watch those movies anymore. Yeah. He just kind of like mumbles, and his Venom symbiote has a weird voice too. And
well, I was a little confused. So apparently, like with the other villains, he came through as well.
Yeah, but he just spent the whole time drinking.
And like he was just confused, and he just sat at a bar drinking the whole time.
I think that's it.
And he had the guy tell him stories over and over again.
And then he hears the tales of like. Thanos or whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, then at the end he just like gets magically teleported away. I was like, well, why do they have to capture all the other villains? They just get teleported away.
Yeah, I don't know.
But also he leaves like a small piece of
the symbiote.
The symbiote behind, which I guess is maybe he's going to another character or possibly Carnage. I don't know.
Well, they did Carnage in his universe.
Oh, they already did Carnage in his
that
universe?
Was
That was in the second one?
Yeah, it was even called Let There Be Carnage. That was
okay. Yeah, I didn't see that one.
Woody Harrelson, apparently.
I heard bad things about it.
Yeah. Like I said, those movies made a lot of money, but critically, they're pretty panned, I think. Mm-hmm. But yeah, overall, a really enjoyable movie. Many times during this, I've said, like, I know there was some good banter here. I don't remember all of it, but there was definitely, like, some good.
I thought they handled Aunt May's death really well. Like, they used it well, like, the emotions and how they talked to Peter, like the other Spider-Man, like, just the bonding and just the sharing. It really added to the story big time.
I forgot to ask, not that it really matters, but usually with like Spider-Man in movies, we do, what would you give it a scale 1 to 10?
Spider-Man, I'd give a 9 out of 10.
Spider-Man, I'd roll in like a B plus, an 8 maybe.
I was thinking like a 7.5, but yeah, I liked it.